Wash my clothes and make breakfast. My sister barked those words from the top of the stairs like she owned the place. Except she didn't. I did. My name is Riley Carson. I'm 29, and this is the story of how entitlement finally met its mirror. She stood there, robe tied loosely, hair in a messy bun, holding her phone like a queen issuing commands. "You heard me, Riley," she said, smirking. "It's the least you can do since I'm watching over the house while you play boss lady at work." The laugh that almost escaped my mouth would have given everything away. Because what she didn't know, what no one in the family knew, was that I'd already decided this was her last week here. I'd let her move in 6 months ago after she claimed she was figuring things out. 6 months of unpaid rent, unwashed dishes, and endless passive-aggressive remarks about how career women forget their families. I turned slowly, met her gaze, and said evenly, "If you want breakfast, Olivia, there's cereal. You can handle it."
She scoffed. Wow.
Attitude. Maybe if you weren't single, you'd understand sharing. That one stung, not because it was true, but because she sounded just like Mom, the woman who'd always put her on a pedestal. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Dad's text popped up. "Family dinner tonight. Be there. No excuses." I sighed. Family dinners at Dad's always meant one thing. Olivia staged my silence. "Fine," I said. "I'll be there." Olivia grinned. "Perfect. I'll tell Dad what you've been like. Maybe he'll knock you off that high horse." I smiled back, calm, collected, knowing what she didn't. By tonight, the high horse she wanted to see fall would be hers. By evening, the sky had that deep orange glow that always felt like warning more than warmth. Olivia spent the afternoon parading around the house in one of my silk robes, humming loudly, pretending to clean. I didn't say a word. I wanted her arrogance untouched. It would make what came later hit harder. At 6, we drove to my father's house. He lived only 15 minutes away, but the silence in that car stretched like miles. She scrolled her phone, smirking occasionally. "Just so you know, Dad's siding with me," she said casually. "About what?" I asked. "About you being selfish. You don't visit enough. You don't help out enough. You think money replaces family." That word, money, she spat it like poison. And yet, every rent check she'd avoided came from the same wallet she was mocking. When we arrived, Dad was already on the porch, arms crossed. "You two took your time," he said, giving Olivia a warm smile before barely glancing at me. Inside, the table was already set. Mom's old china, candles, the usual performance of family togetherness. Olivia dropped into her chair beside Dad, like a throne she'd earned. "So," Dad began, "your sister tells me you've been distant, Riley. That you've forgotten where you came from." I smiled tightly. "Did she also tell you she hasn't paid rent in 6 months?" Olivia's face stiffened. "Wow, bringing money into family talk. Typical." Dad frowned. "You're her sister. You could help her out. Family isn't about keeping score." I placed my napkin neatly on my lap. "You're right, Dad. Family isn't about keeping score. It's about honesty." And just like that, the trap was set. Because tonight, honesty was going to tear their little alliance apart. Dinner started quietly, the way storms do before lightning hits. Olivia kept filling the silence with her usual monologue, stories about her potential modeling jobs, dramatic sighs about her difficult landlord, me, and constant digs disguised as jokes. Dad chuckled along, glancing at me every now and then like he couldn't decide whether to scold me or pity her. "So, Riley," Olivia said sweetly, slicing into her roast, "how's your little company? Still pretending to be a CEO?" I smiled. "Still running it. We just signed a deal with a Seattle client. Small contract, about 200 grand. Her fork clinked on the plate. Dad raised an eyebrow. 200 what? 1,000, I said, calmly sipping my water. It's been a good quarter. Olivia blinked rapidly.
Oh, wow.
Good for you. But her tone cracked slightly, envy dripping through the sarcasm. Dad nodded approvingly. That's impressive, Riley. I didn't realize your business had grown so much. I know, I said softly. Nobody did. Not even the sister, who's been living off me. Her head snapped toward me. Excuse me? I turned to Dad. Did she tell you she's been staying rent-free? That I've been covering her credit card bills because she maxed them out on brand deals that never existed? Olivia's face went pale. That's a lie. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. Open to the bank app, every transfer labeled Rent Olivia. Dad's smile vanished. You told me you were paying her back. I meant to, she shouted. She said it was fine. No, I said, voice calm, steady. I said I'd help until you got on your feet. That was 6 months ago. You've only learned how to stand taller on my shoulders. The air thickened. Dad sat back, silent. Olivia's lips trembled, her performance finally cracking. The truth was finally louder than her voice. And I wasn't done yet. The silence that followed was almost satisfying. Almost. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. Olivia, is this true? She stammered, eyes darting between us. She's exaggerating. You know how Riley is dramatic, controlling. I laughed softly. If being responsible makes me controlling, then sure. But if you're going to talk about drama, Olivia, maybe tell him what you did last week. Her eyes widened. Don't. Go ahead, Dad said sharply. What did she do? I slid my phone across the table again, this time opening a photo, Olivia posing in front of my car, captioned, "Early birthday gift from my generous sister." Dad frowned. You bought her a car? I didn't, I said. She borrowed it for errands and posted that online. I found it when one of my clients mentioned it. Olivia's face drained of color. It was just for fun. Fun, I said quietly. You humiliated me publicly, pretended I was your sponsor, and then had the nerve to call me your maid this morning. Dad blinked. Your what? I repeated it slowly, letting every syllable cut through the air. She called me her maid. He turned toward Olivia, voice rising. You said that to your sister? The one putting a roof over your head. Her lips quivered. I didn't mean it like. Dad cut her off. Enough. The same man who'd ignored my years of exhaustion now looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. And then, for the first time, he looked back at me and said, almost quietly, Riley, you should have told me. I met his eyes. I tried. You just didn't want to hear anything that made her look bad. This time, he didn't argue. He just sat there, the king without a kingdom, realizing who'd really been holding it all together. Olivia's fork clattered against her plate, the sound slicing through the tense air. She pushed back her chair, face flushed. You're turning this into some big drama to make me look bad. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You did that all by yourself. Dad rubbed his temples, exhaustion replacing anger. Enough. Both of you. But his eyes stayed on her. That was new. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. What's going on? Olivia seized her moment. She's lying, Mom. She's trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. I turned to Mom. You want proof? I opened the payment receipts again, scrolling to the last one. Every month, $1,200 straight to her account. Want me to show you where it went? Designer handbags. Spa trips. A trip to Miami she told you I paid for as her bonus. Mom's jaw tightened. Is that true, Olivia? Olivia's voice cracked. She said I could. She didn't mind. I didn't mind helping, I interrupted. But you mistook generosity for servitude. Dad pushed his chair back, slowly standing. I think you owe your sister an apology. The words landed like thunder. Olivia froze, her usual defiance fading into disbelief. You're taking her side? Mom's side. He's not taking sides. He's acknowledging the truth. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. So, I'm the villain now? No, I said quietly. You just wrote your own ending. She looked at me, lips trembling. What do you want me to do, Riley? I met her gaze, steady. Start packing when we get home. You've got a week. Dad sat back down slowly. She means it, Olivia. I nodded, voice calm as ever. This isn't revenge. It's rent and reality finally due. Olivia stood frozen in the middle of the dining room, her lips parted, a tear suspended on her cheek. For once, she had no script, no snappy comeback, no way to twist the story. Dad exhaled slowly. "Pack your things." His voice was low but final. "Riley's carried you long enough." Mom reached for his arm, whispering, "Richard." But he didn't look away from Olivia. "She's done everything we should have done years ago, set boundaries." Olivia spun toward me, her eyes wild. "You're turning Dad against me." "No," I said gently. "You did that when you decided I was beneath you." The words seemed to echo off the walls, heavy and true. For years, she'd lived off my effort, convinced she deserved it. Now the reality of consequence was finally standing in front of her, and it looked like me. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the photo frames rattled. The house fell quiet again. The clink of cutlery, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the dining room clock, ordinary sounds that suddenly felt like relief. Mom sat down, eyes glistening. "Riley, maybe you could let her stay until—" "No, Mom," I interrupted softly. "Every time I bend, she breaks me a little more. I'm done calling that love." Dad gave a slow nod. "She'll figure it out. Or she won't. But that's not your problem anymore." For the first time in years, the heaviness on my chest loosened. I picked up my purse, glancing toward the door. "I'll head home. I've got a long week ahead. Board meeting tomorrow." Mom's voice trembled. "You've changed." I met her gaze with a calm she didn't recognize.
No, Mom.
I'd just stopped apologizing for surviving. Outside, the night air felt colder, but my spine felt warm, unbent, alive. The week that followed was quiet, too quiet for Olivia. On Monday morning, I found her halfway through packing, muttering under her breath about ungrateful people and family betrayal. She didn't look at me when I walked past. I didn't push. Silence had become my new power. By Wednesday, she'd posted one of those cryptic stories on social media. When people show you who they are, believe them. Fake sisters exist too. I didn't even flinch, because by then, my phone was full of messages from people congratulating me on my company's new partnership, the same deal Olivia once mocked as pretend. Friday afternoon, Dad called.
His voice was softer this time.
"She's leaving tonight. Just give her grace, okay?" "Grace doesn't mean access," I said gently. "She'll have both when she learns respect."
He sighed.
"You sound like your grandmother." "Good," I replied. "She never raised beggars." That night, Olivia dragged her suitcase down the hallway, pausing by the front door. "Dad says you'll regret pushing family away," she said, voice trembling. I met her eyes.
"No, Olivia."
"I regret letting family push me down." For a moment, she almost looked human again, lost, small, unarmed. Then she turned and walked out into the cold, headlights washing over her before disappearing down the street. When the door clicked shut, I sat on the couch and exhaled, realizing how long I'd lived with someone else's noise echoing inside me. Peace was foreign, but it was beautiful. I texted Dad one last time. "She's gone, and I'm okay." He replied minutes later, "Proud of you." It wasn't victory, it was balance. And balance felt better than revenge ever could. A month later, the holidays rolled in, and for the first time in my adult life, the season felt light. The apartment was quiet except for soft jazz, cinnamon candles, and the slow rhythm of peace. Mom called that morning. "Olivia wants to come home for Christmas," she began carefully. I smiled to myself. "She already has a home, Mom. Maybe she'll find herself there." That silence said everything. Later that evening, I hosted a small dinner for my closest friends and my mentor, Naomi. The table glowed with warmth, laughter spilling like music, the kind my family never learned to hear. Naomi raised her glass. To boundaries that become bridges, not cages. Everyone clinked glasses. I held mine a moment longer, letting the weight of her words settle. After dinner, I opened my laptop to approve the new initiative at the foundation, the Restart Fund, a program for women rebuilding their lives after family betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become exactly what I needed years ago. At midnight, a knock echoed through the hallway. Ethan answered, then turned to me, whispering, "It's Olivia." She stood there, bundled in a coat too thin for winter, eyes red but not angry. "I got the job you sent me," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. "Congratulations." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry, Riley." I nodded. "Then start by being kind to yourself. That's where it begins." She nodded back, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a performance. She turned and left, the snow swallowing her footsteps. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing in the scent of pine and peace. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with understanding. And sometimes that's enough.